Shalom, and welcome to Hebrew Bible Secrets with your host, Rabbi Beaton. We're reading today from the book of Luke, starting at chapter 21. Luke chapter 21, 1. And he looked up and saw the rich men casting their gifts into the treasury. 2. And he saw also a certain poor widow casting in there 2 small copper coins. 3. And he said, of a truth, I say to you, that this poor widow has cast in more than they all. 4. For all these have of their wealth cast in to the offerings of Elohim, but she of her poverty has cast in everything she had to live on. 5. And as some spoke of the Beth Hamikdash, the temple, how it was adorned with precious stones and gifts, he said. 6. As for these things which you behold, days will come, in that which there shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. 7. And they asked him, saying, Rabbi, but when shall these things be? And what sign will there be when these things shall come to pass? 8. And he said, Take heed that you be not deceived. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Messiah, and the time draws near. Go not therefore after them. 9. But when you shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. 10. Then said he to them, Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. 11. And great earthquakes shall be in various places, and famines and diseases, and fearful signs and great signs shall there be from the Shamayim, from the heaven. 12. But before all these, they shall lay hands on ye, and persecute you, handing you over to the congregations and into prisons, being brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. 13. And it shall turn to you for a testimony. 14. Settle it therefore in your hearts, not to meditate before what you shall answer. 15. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries shall not be able to withstand nor contradict. 16. And you shall be betrayed both by parents and brothers and relatives and friends, and some of you shall they cause to be put to death. 17. And you shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. 18. But there shall not a hair of your head perish. 19. In your patience you will gain your lives. 20. And when you shall see Jerusalem surrounded with armies, and then know that desolation there is near. 21. Then let them which are in Yehudah flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. 22. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. 23. But woe to them that are with child, and to them that nurse children in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. 24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. 25. And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea, the waves roaring. 26. Men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of Shamayim shall be shaken. 27. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the cloud with power and glory. 28. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your rescue draws near. 29. And he spoke to them a parable. Behold, the fig etz, the fig tree, and all the etzim, all the trees. 30. When they now shoot forth, you see and know of yourselves that summer is now near. 31. So likewise you, when you see these things come to pass, know that the kingdom of Elohim is near. 32. Verily I say to you, this generation shall not pass away till all be fulfilled. 33. The Shamayim and the earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. 34. And be on your guard to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts are weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness and cares of this life, and so that the day comes upon you unawares. 35. For as a trap shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. 36. Guard therefore, and petition always, that you may have the strength to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. 37. And in the daytime he was teaching in the Beth Hamikdash, the temple, and at night he went out and abode in the mount that is called the Mount of Olives. 38. And all the people came early in the morning to him in the Beth Hamikdash, the temple, for to hear him. So that now ends chapter 21 of Luke. So let's go back and have a look at some of the footnotes in chapter 21 of Luke. So the first footnote we have is in verse 6. For these things which you behold, days will come, in that which there shall not be left one stone upon another, that shall not be thrown down. Okay, so we have a footnote for this, thrown down. So we have here, see footnote Matthew 24 and 2. So let's have a look at Matthew 24 and 2. So Matthew 24 and 2, and it reads, And Yeshua said to them, Do you see all these things? Verily I say to you, these shall not be left here, one stone upon another, that shall not be thrown down. Okay, so one stone upon another, that shall not be thrown down. So we have a footnote here. So the footnote reads, As Yeshua's prophecy, the Beth Hamikdash, the temple, was burnt, and every stone turned to dig the gold and silver that went inside the stone by the Roman armies. Yeshua was actually warning of an impending judgment mentioned in Ezekiel 7 and 2. And the cause is mentioned in Ezekiel 7 and 11. This is the theme here, and not individuals going to hell. These people, who are called the worst of the heathens in the narrative of Ezekiel, the first time appeared who were the Babylonians, and Israel was emptied. The second time Israel was emptied, it was the Romans. Note that the third time these worst of the heathens arrived, both the people of the first Babylonian lands and Romans occupied lands in the Middle East, came to fulfillment in the Muslims who occupy those lands today. Yeshua was showing not only the coming impending judgment, Romans, but also the one after that, the ones that the radical Muslims will enact to try to empty the land and only succeed in capturing Jerusalem, hence the finish in Matthew 23:39. With calling upon the name of Yahweh is an intrinsic clue that the end-time judgment that will befall Israel will be through the radical Muslim nations who turn up to war with Israel. As Yeshua's prophecy, the Beth Hamikdash, the temple, was burnt, and every stone turned to dig the gold that went inside the stones by the Roman armies. The temple was not destroyed by the Romans as falsified by religious sources, but instead it was destroyed by the Hebrews themselves. The Zealots, some of the corrupt Sadducees and Pharisees. These were many false prophets who prophesied victory for the Zealots, the rebels, the Sicarii, murderers, assassins, but they were all proven wrong. Contrary to popular belief, Titus, the Roman, actually tried to preserve the temple and protect it, while the Jews, the hybrid Jews, mainly Edomite converts and wayward genetics, were to lead that generation into destruction. Anyone that spoke out against them was killed and hung on a tree or put on a cross by the very people who today complain about being persecuted. So take note, this is real factual history. Even the fast of the 9th is a distortion, since the destruction did not happen on the 9th, but on the 10th day. The fasting is not commanded, neither the mourning, for something that occurred due to rampant sin and hatred. Yohanan Migush Halav, or Yohanan ben Levi, was one of the leaders of the rebels. Josephus wrote the following: "The temple was destroyed, despite Titus's order that it be preserved, and despite his attempts to put out the fire once started." So writes Josephus. And so this is how Titus wished to be seen. In fact, the Zealots and the rebels started the fire, and they also murdered many people in Jerusalem. Titus held a decisive council to determine the temple's fate on the 9th of Adar, and the fire began the next day, the 10th. The 10th corresponding exactly to the date of the destruction of the first temple by Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. Jeremiah 52:12. But 2 Kings 25:8 places it on the 7th of Adar. Josephus Wars 6.93. Josephus argues with John to restore the sacrifices. Josephus delivers a message from Titus to the rebels within hearing of all the populace. John may leave the temple so that it be no longer polluted, and the sacrifices may be restored. John enters into a heated argument with Josephus, John stating the city was God's and so could not be captured. Josephus replying that John had driven the divine presence away by stopping the sacrifices. John is unmoved, but great numbers of upper-class citizens, especially priests, desert at this point to the Romans. 6.165, August 10th. Panimus, Tammuz 22. Rebels set fire to the temple porticos. The rebels set fire to the northwest portico that is connected to Antonia to begin to separate the temple from the occupied fortress. 6.316-322. Romans carry standards into the sanctuary at the east gate and sacrifice to them. So much gold has been taken from the temple that the price of gold throughout Syria is halved. The priests are executed by Titus. Note, these are not typically righteous priests, but the unrighteous variety who refuse to save people's lives and negotiate peace. 6.387-391. 7.162. Temple treasures recovered. Priest Jesus ben Thibuthi delivers some of the temple treasures to Titus in exchange for protection. Included are 2 candelabra, solid gold, and massive table bowls and platters, the veils, the high priest's garments, including the precious stones, and many other items. The temple treasures, Phineas provides more, including priestly clothing and incense. The treasures are eventually displayed by Vespasian in Rome in the newly constructed Temple of Peace. 5.562-566. Yohanan Migush Halav, or Yohanan ben Levi, John, Upper Galilee, located on the northeastern slopes of Mount Meron, 13 kilometers, 8.1 miles north of Safed, or Safed, in Israel's northern district. One of the leader of the rebels plunders the temple. John melts down the temple vessels for gold and distributes sacred wine and oil to his men. He reasons they can employ divine things on behalf of the divinity. Rabbi Simon Altaf comments, John, Yehukanan, was completely wrong to do what he did. Distributing holy things to unrighteous people is not permitted. These people, for their sins of removing the rightful priesthood, were marked for destruction. The argument made that John tried to preserve life. In fact, his men had taken many innocent lives of Jews, calling them collaborators. Hence, the argument to preserve life does not stand. According to the Babylonian Talmud, Gittin 5.6b, the Baranim, wild ruffians, aggressors, destroyed decades' worth of food and firewood in besieged Jerusalem to force the Jews to fight the Romans out of desperation. 5.331-347, May 30. The second wall cracks. Titus enters but is forced back. Jerusalem's second wall is breached 5 days after the third wall. Titus, with picked troops, recklessly enters the breach in the second wall and into a crowded market district, asking the citizens to surrender peacefully so as to preserve the city. But the Judean militants attack. Many soldiers are wounded, and the entire invading force would probably have been annihilated had not Titus come to their relief, covering them as the soldiers are forced back through the wall. 5.361-419, Life. 1-7, Life. 414-417. Josephus appeals to the rebels to surrender. Titus, seeking to avoid the destruction of the city, delegates Josephus to speak to the rebels in their native language and persuade them to surrender. Josephus circles the walls as he speaks to the rebels. He implores them to spare themselves, the people, the country, and the temple. The Romans, he says, have done more to protect the temple than they. It is rational to give in to superior arms, and the Romans were masters of the world because, clearly, the will of the deity was with them. The cities had surrendered to the Romans knowing this. The Romans knew that famine was raging in the city. Its fall was inevitable, yet they would be treated well if they surrendered now, while none would be spared if all offers were rejected. The Bible demonstrates that when the deity supports the Jews, success is obtained without warfare, while if war is waged against superior powers, the result is always defeat and destruction for the Jews. Thus, invariably, have arms been refused to our nation, and warfare has been a sure signal for defeat. Josephus compares himself directly to Jeremiah, for though Jeremiah boldly proclaimed that they were hateful to God and would be taken captive unless they surrendered the city, they did not put Jeremiah to death. But in contrast, the rebels now assail me with abuse and missiles, while I exhort you to save yourselves. Miracles, moreover, greeted the Romans. The pool at Siloam, which had been dried up, now filled with water at Titus's approach. Josephus makes a personal appeal. I have a mother, a wife, a not ignoble family, and an ancient and illustrious house involved in these perils. And maybe you think it is on their account that my advice is offered. Slay them, take my blood as the price of your own salvation. I too am prepared to die, if my death will lead to your learning wisdom. 5.420-445. Horrific famine seizes Jerusalem, although Josephus, with his tears, thus loudly appeals to them. The insurgents do not yield. However, non-combatants are inspired to desert. They sell their possessions for gold, then swallow the gold coins to hide them as they escape to the Romans. The deserters give the Romans pitiful reports of increasing famine in the city and attacks by insurgents performing house-to-house searches for food, beating and torturing those within. The wealthy are robbed and murdered by the forces of John and Simon. To narrate their enormities in detail is impossible, but to put it briefly, no other city ever endured such miseries, nor since the world began has there been a generation more prolific in crime. 5.541-547. Josephus knocked unconscious by a rebel missile. As Josephus continues his exhortations at the wall, he is struck in the head with a stone and knocked unconscious. The Romans rescue him. Militants think him dead and rejoice. Josephus' mother, in prison, laments his death, but Josephus quickly recovers and appears before the walls, vowing revenge. The sight of him animated the people and filled the rebels with dismay. 5.548-561. Deserters cut open for their gold. Syrian troops discover some deserters have swallowed gold coins. The rumour spreads that all deserters are filled with gold. Arabs and Syrians cut open all who escaped the city. In one night, no less than 2,000 were ripped up. Josephus interprets this as another example of divine retribution. 6.93. Josephus argues with John to restore the sacrifices. Josephus delivers a message from Titus to the rebels, within the hearing of all the populace. John may leave the temple so that it will no longer be polluted, and the sacrifices may be restored. John enters into a heated argument with Josephus. John stating the city was God's and so could not be captured. Josephus replying that John had driven the divine presence away by stopping the sacrifices. John is unmoved, but great numbers of upper-class citizens, especially priests, desert at this point to the Romans. Josephus relates that there was a Mary, daughter of Eleazar, originally from the village of Bethizuba, in the district of Perea, east of the Jordan River, who had previously fled to Jerusalem. Distinguished in family and fortune, her property, treasures, and food had been plundered by the Jewish defenders of the city during the siege. Famine was eating her heart out, and rage consuming her still faster. Maddened by hunger, she took the infant at her breast and said to him, "Poor little mite, in war, famine, and civil strife, why should I keep you alive? With the Romans, there is only slavery, and that only if alive when they come. But famine is forestalling slavery, and the partisans are crueler than either. Come, you must be my food for me. To the partisans an avenging spirit, and to the world a tale, the only thing left to fill up the measure of Jewish misery. And in defiance to all natural feeling, She killed her son, then roasted him and ate one half, hiding the rest. 6.193-219. Horrible Famine. The news of Mary provokes hatred and despair. The victims of the famine are dying in countless numbers. Hungry rebels, like mad dogs, stagger from house to house, searching for food. Shoe leather and grass is gnawed on. Famine reaches its ultimate depth. The tale of Mary, daughter of Eleazar, shocks the rebels and Romans alike. For fear of being regarded as fabricator, I would gladly have omitted this tragedy, had I not innumerable witnesses among my contemporaries. Titus vows to bury this abomination beneath the ruins of the city. 6.233-239. Titus orders the temple gates set on fire. Now that Titus saw that his endeavour to spare a foreign temple led only to the injury and slaughter of his troops, he orders the gates set on fire. The silver melts, and the fire enters the woodwork and spreads to the porticos. After a day, Titus orders the fire extinguished, and a road built to the gates for the ascent of the legions. But fire continues to burn. Two important officers of Simon's desert to the Romans. 6.315. Genuine signs had predicted the destruction. There were many false prophets at the time, says Josephus, yet people had not paid attention to the genuine signs of destruction. A star resembling a sword standing over the city, a comet, a brilliant light around the altar, a vision of armed battalions in the sky, and voices in the temple, along with the prophecies of a peasant crying, "Woe to Jerusalem." It is impossible for men to escape their fate, even though they foresee it. 6.420-422. 1 million dead. Number of prisoners taken in the entire war, 97,000. Died during the siege, 1,100,000. This large number during the siege was due to the Passover celebration, as Jews from many countries had been in the city for the festival when the siege began. Josephus tells skeptical readers this number is consistent with Cestius' population estimate under Nero. Okay, so there's quite a lot to take in there, so I hope that helps you with the understanding of what was going on at the time of the destruction of the Second Temple. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 8. And he said, "Take heed that you not be deceived, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Messiah, and the time draws near. Go not therefore after them." So let's have a look at this. So it says, see Matthew 24 and 5. So let's have a look at Matthew 24 and 5. So Matthew 24 and 5, and it reads, "For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Messiah, and shall deceive many." So we have a footnote here, "I am Messiah." So let's have a look at this quickly. So many in Islam will rise and say Muhammad is the only way to Shamayim, to heaven, and will deceive others. The word Mashiach means the anointed one, and this claim will be usurped by the Islamists as the ones fighting for their anointed one. The whole of Metayahu 24 is geared towards Islam and not some other idea of men. Watch and read carefully. It is the battle to come between the 12 tribes of Islam and with the 12 tribes of Israel, a showdown of 24. Okay, so this is yet future. still to come, so obviously don't be deceived by Islam, saying the only way to the Shamayim is through Islam. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 11. And great earthquakes shall be in various places, and famines and diseases, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from the Shamayim, from the heavens. So let's have a look at this. So we have here, see Matthew 24 and 7. So let's have a look at Matthew 24 and 7. So Matthew 24 and 7 reads, For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and earthquakes in various places. So famines and earthquakes, so I've got a footnote here for earthquakes. So let's have a look at this. Mostly judgment will come on Muslim nations, as we saw a huge earthquake in Pakistan in 2005 and a tsunami in Indonesia in 2004. Note, Indonesia is the largest Muslim nation in the world. This does not mean that the European nations will escape judgment, but it means all nations partaking and helping the Islamic nations against Israel will have received their fair share. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 16. And you shall be betrayed both by parents and brothers and relatives and friends, and some of you shall they cause to be put to death. So let's have a look at this. So it says, see Matthew 24 and 9. So let's have a look at Matthew 24 and 9. And it reads, Then they will hand ye over to be persecuted, and shall kill ye, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. So we have a footnote here for, and they shall kill ye. So let's have a look at this. So radical Muslims will do the killing of Christians, who will be taken hostages. Hebrew people and others who profess any kind of biblical faith will be killed by the radicals in the name of Allah. Okay, so we have another footnote. And you shall be hated of all nations. So let's have a look at this. This is a clear prophecy that the hatred was to come from the Islamic nations. If we look at our modern world, the majority of Hindus do not hate believers of Yahshua, and neither do Buddhists, but the lasting hatred was to come from Muslims. Kal Goyim, in Hebrew, does not mean the whole world. In context, it means the nations round about of Israel. Those that form a confederacy against Israel. Tefillin, Psalms 83. See the complete work of World War III, Unmasking the End Time Beasts, by Rabbi on www.forever-israel.com for further understanding. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 36. Guard therefore, and petition always, that you may have the strength to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. Okay, so let's have a look at this, before the Son of Man. So we have here, this is not a pre-tribulation rapture, escape, as wrongly taught in the church, but praying and due diligence to Torah will protect you in the times of trouble. Okay, so that now brings us to the end of Luke chapter 21. So I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the other side. This is Rabbi Beaton saying, thank you for watching, and Shalom Shalom. Baruch Shem, Kivod Malkuto, Leolam Va'ed. Benevolent be the name of his esteemed kingdom, forever and ever and ever. Amen.